Okay, I might have to yell. You guys are way in the back. Is that so you can leave early when it gets boring? I will keep you awake. Now, I don't want to stand in front. Where is best for me to stand? Kristen, help me. We're just right here, right here. Okay, that works. Now, I just want you all to know what an honor it is for me to be able to take your time, the very last part of your conference, and share my passion. This is a result of my doctoral program, and I think it's important that I share with you where this came from. Because you see premarital education and you might think, well, why is she trying to reinvent the wheel? There's stuff out there. There's a lot of programs out there. Well, this is bigger than me. And so what happened was about a decade ago when I was at BYU in my undergrad program, I remember being in a class about the proclamation, the family, a proclamation to the world. Something inside of me exploded. And I went to my professor, Dr. Jason Carroll, many of you may be aware of his research, and I said to him, I really want to know more about between the lines in what we're talking about in this document. He invited me to serve on his research team, and I'll be talking a little bit about that later. But that was the beginnings. I knew there was something about that document and that it would influence my work, my career. So fast forward to my internship, and in the company that I worked for, the supervisor would interview us every 6 months and say, what's your goal for the next 6 months? What do you want to accomplish? Well, it just so happened that I was just about to graduate, so this was a key, a hint that I was being hired to stay. And I just blurted out, I want to develop a relationship program. And then I thought, wait, what did I just say? I think I'm supposed to do this, but I don't know how. So it sounded good. So he wrote it down. And then when I graduated, back at that time, when you graduated from your master's program, and so you were no longer an intern, you aren't a therapist, you're nothing. So you can't practice. I had a full load of clients, and I had to say to them, I'm waiting for my degree to be posted. I'm waiting to be an associate therapist. And so my boss called me in. He said, do you remember your goal? Do you remember what you wanted to do? He said, you do it over the next 2 weeks. I will pay you to come in every day. So every day for the next 2 weeks, I sat for 8 hours and scoured all of the research that I had investigated during my master's program, everything that I knew, pulled together a relationship program, and then put together a proposal for the executive committee, submitted it, and they said, green light, do this. So for the next 6 years, every 2 months, I held these relationship workshops, handfuls of couples, just a little small group of people every 2 months. I remember there was a stake president and his wife who attended, and he came up to me afterwards and he said, we need to get this material out there. The world needs to know about this. I learned things that I've never learned before, and they loved going to workshops. So that told me, okay, there's something in here. Wasn't sure exactly, I kind of had a hint of what it was, but then through the years, engaged couples would come. And that's interesting. When they come to a relationship workshop, for a couple that's engaged, they're supposed to be happy and getting along well and so in love bliss. But then I learned that they were coming because it was a wedding gift. And so somebody must have seen the benefits of sending them to the relationship workshop. But here's what really happened inside. Over those years, I had this urgency. Something said to me, I'm not reaching enough couples. I didn't know how to make this happen, how to get it out there. So then a lightning bolt hit me and said, you need to get your doctorate. And my husband laughed. He's like, wait, all our friends are playing now. We're older, our kids are grown. Why would I do that? But I knew that it was a way to get more credibility with this program. Not only that, when I went in for my admissions interview, I said to them, look, all I need is your stamp of approval. I have my dissertation already. Well, little needless to say, I had a lot of work ahead because what I wanted to do was refine my present program to the point where I would have scoured all of the research out there and find what's missing and develop this program so that it filled a need, didn't just replace or reinvent the wheel. So part of that dream through those years was, how do I get this to the world? And I'm just pleased to tell you that just this morning I received word that it's being translated in Korean. We have it being used in Afghanistan. We have it being used in Egypt, Romania, all over the world. It is being used by therapists. So for me to be able to present this to you is part of a culmination of, I want to share my dream with you. I want you to know what this is. And by the end of today, you'll see why it's different. Okay, should we go? I just want to review some of the literature about marriage, divorce, and premarital education. So the first, just to give you a map of what we're going to do, I'm going to get you out of your chairs. You're going to be out of your chairs using part of this program, okay? But for now, if you'll just bear with me, I want to give you some more background of what I found in the research, because it's fascinating. So, over the years, society's view of marriage has shifted a lot. Way back when, in the 50s and 60s and the 1900s, it was the deep, dark secret. It was the family shameful thing if someone got a divorce. They didn't talk about it. It was so hard and difficult, embarrassing, humiliating, painful. But also, if in high school when you graduated and you weren't in gear to find your mate right after you graduated, you were considered not stable, maladjusted, maybe a little neurotic. But then society's view of marriage changed. And you can probably think of sitcoms that are based on divorce. We laugh about it now. It's more acceptable. We talk about it all the time. In fact, you hear people joke that they've had 2 or 3 marriages. And so society is shifting how we accept the idea that relationships can dissolve and end. And there's various reasons. As a therapist, I have seen it all. And so, but it's just the point is we're seeing divorce differently. Now, also more women are finding opportunities in the workforce. Women are finding that they can support themselves, and so they're more confident in initiating the end of a marriage. But also, here's another disturbing thing, and I am with a room full of people who have a gospel perspective, who know that the institution of marriage is something that is so eternal and so important. And so now laws are changing. They're saying, well, let's make it easier for you to dissolve the family unit. So in Utah, I don't know if you're aware, but just a couple of years ago, it used to be 90 days from filing. Now it's 30 or less. If the judge deems it okay and appropriate, if he has it on his desk, he'll stamp it and it's done. So that's just the evolution of how we view divorce. Now, how many of you thought the statistic was 50% of first marriages? Yeah, that's a typical, it's a myth. All the research suggests that it's 30%. So that is a concern, but 90% of people will eventually marry. But what we're seeing is the age of marriage is increasing. And I'm going to share with you what we're finding about why people are avoiding commitment and waiting longer. But we know that there are adverse health effects, that when divorce happens, everyone in the family is affected. So we're worried about the mental health issues, the physical issues, but I'll show you what we're most worried about. And I don't know if you've ever seen this term, but even couples that come into my office and they'll say, we're not going to get divorced, and I say to them, well, you are in a state of divorce. And it feels to me like emotional divorce has happened, and it's so shocking to hear that. And then they say, yeah, we're roommates. This is what we're worried about. And there's reasons that that happens, and we'll talk about that as well. But most millennials are telling us, and the research supports this, that they're avoiding marriage so they don't have to get divorced. Isn't that backwards? It's so sad. But I'm going to share with you a survey that was done on youth in high school age. And this is what they reported. Their fears of marriage and commitment were because they'd lose their freedom, And committing to another person was a little scary, the parenting idea and the economic concerns. But I mean, these are high schoolers. However, years ago, high schoolers were conditioned to think toward commitment. Now they're thinking toward careers. And this moves into Dr. Jason Carroll's research. What we found in his work for emerging adulthood, he looked at the criteria that they considered was needed to be in place before they looked for their mate. And this is a trend. They felt like they had to have an extended period of singlehood. They had to have their car, their home, and their career. Oh, and then I'll find her or him. Isn't it interesting? So it's, again, the age is moving up to the upper 20s. And we used to think that that meant she was going to be a spinster, and there was no hope. But they're moving into this mindset that they have to experience life before they bring someone else on. And I'm going to help you see why. How many of you are familiar with the ACEs study? Okay, hands high. I want to know who's with me on this. When I was in my doctoral program, I was introduced to this. And this again became, I put it in my pocket and thought, oh my goodness. So what they did was they took 17,000 people and interviewed them and asked them about 10 different categories of dysfunction or trauma experiences in their childhood. If I showed you those 10 categories, everyone in this room could raise their hand and say, I have been affected by that, someone in my family. So for example, abuse, neglect, maybe a traumatic move, a job loss, divorce, drugs, alcohol, all of those, death, all of those we've been touched by. But what they found was, out of these 17,000 people, it directly affected their social, emotional, and cognitive impairment, adoption of health risk behaviors, which leads to disease, disability, and social problems, and early death. And then notice, the researchers said, there's scientific gaps. We don't know how to address this. And when I saw this study, I thought, by that time, I was advanced trained in emotionally focused therapy, where everything about attachment history. And I thought, well, wait a sec. There's ways to address that. And dear Dean Bender talked about lifespan integration, which is a really important work that we see miracles, don't we? Yeah. But anyway, I took this and thought, okay, what we're learning here is adverse childhood experiences affect how we view relationships later in life. It directly influences not just our physical and mental health, but it directly influences how we see connecting with other people. Okay, so I stuck with this. I thought, okay, we're gonna put that in my program. We're gonna figure this out. Now, could someone read this for me? Anybody, raise your hand high and read it loud. Yes, Louise.
The infant and young child should experience a warm, intimate, and continuous relationship with his mother or permanent mother substitute, in which both find satisfaction and enjoyment. Without this secure base, they may have significant and irreversible mental health consequences.
Thank you. Why do you think I highlighted irreversible?
Because it's not true.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you. And you know what? I love Dr. John Bowlby. I think he's amazing. Hundreds of studies have proven that that's not true. So I won't argue with him when I see him in heaven. I'll just say, I beg to differ. And when we show this slide in the workshop, I have had men weep because they realize the deficits that they had in their early childhood. And it's not specific to gender, but I am thinking of that sweet gentleman that sat with his wife and he said, what? You mean I can heal from all those deficits that I had in childhood? Yes. So this is important because it's a little teaser. There's ways. And the reason for that is because in childhood, when those deficits happen, we bond naturally. What happens? The baby cries. Mom goes to the baby. And over and over and over again, the baby sees mom's face, smells mom's skin, and starts to feel like, wow, I matter. Well, now we got to do it all over again in adulthood. The adult bonding process isn't talked about much. It's like, well, I love you. We should be fine. So that is the problem. Adults don't know how to authentically connect. And when I say authentically, I mean taking the mask off, becoming naked emotionally, and connecting authentically. And we really don't know how to address the negative patterns. In emotionally focused therapy, we're all about that negative cycle. But when those are unaddressed, the raw spots become scars, and it gets in the way of connection. Communication problems and damaging marital conflict can lead to marital distress and divorce, but here's the most concerning one. Any children who are a result of that marriage will be directly affected, just like the ACEs study, okay? So it would seem to me that that title up there needs to be focused on in a really good program. So in all this scouring of the research, I'm taking notes and thinking, okay, I'm going to add that. I've got to focus on this. I've got to make sure I address that. If 1/3 of first marriages are at risk of dissolving, how about this statistic? This one is true. 43% probability of divorce in between the years 10 and 15. Why? What's happening in the family at that point? Little children, oh my goodness, we love those children, but mom's office never closes. She's in there 24 hours a day. The dad is out there trying to climb the career ladder. They're doing what they should be doing, of course, but they forget to nourish the relationship. The relationship dies or starves to the point that it's at risk and fragile. Yes?
Does that mean, so yeah, you only have 66% that make it through the first 10 years, so 43% of the survivors going to get divorced?
Wow, that's a scary statistic, isn't it? I want to question that too. I'm just regurgitating what I found. And so did you hear what his question was? He basically said, wow, that's pretty awful. Could that be true? No, we're not going to let it be true, right? We're going to address it. Yeah.
Fix it. That's what you meant, though.
Yeah. Yeah, so when you think about, so it's not 50% of first marriages are at risk. It's the 43% of those mid-30s that we're really worried about, okay? And, well, I'll leave that aside and share it later. But yes, we're worried about that. So the question is then, are young couples equipped with the tools necessary to be able to navigate the waters of marriage? So premarital education programs give them the tools to have a happy first year. But really what they're not addressing is how to have stability throughout the marriage. What are the tools that they would put in their tool bag and bring out constantly? Okay, so that's a teaser. I don't think that most couples are. There's lots of books out there, and I hope they're reading them. And so premarital education actually is supported by research. It is considered a preventative tool. It does work. Here's what I found. It assists in the transition from singlehood to marriage. It actually is a preventative measure. Divorce is a high cost to society. These are all the studies I've cited underneath. It is highly correlated with greater marital quality short term. So I want to emphasize that. It also contributes to lower levels of marital conflict short term. And then it does contribute to lower divorce rates. So those are all important. These are great, rock solid studies, people that you probably are very familiar with. So what do they usually cover? And I'm going to go into specific premarital education programs or relationship programs so you can see, and I'm not going to criticize them, and I'm not going to bash them. What I'm going to do is show you what's missing, okay? So, and I have some great colleagues who are trained in all of these, but typically they cover all the communication, problem-solving skills, commitment, sacrifice, forgiveness. Those are all essential points. What they're missing is a focus on attachment. And I really want to emphasize that. I scoured that research to find what did they teach their facilitators? Did they teach them about attachment theory? And also emotional connection. And I'm going to change that term in just a minute. So Fawcett and colleagues did a study on all the present programs. In 2010, they released this. They found concerns with all these areas. Content, the content that was being taught. The method of delivery, that one I should highlight in red, because that one's important. How do you teach the material? The setting of the workshop, and then the couples that are targeted. Because who's not going to go into premarital education classes? Those that are struggling already financially. They're not going to be able to sign up for it. So the targeted populations were those that are affluent or parents could support them in it, or so the populations were not being covered adequately. So let's go back to ACEs. So then I said to myself after I looked at all this, so if we've got this ACEs study and they're saying those adverse childhood experiences affect how they their health and well-being and how they view relationships, we need to focus on that. So therefore, what's missing? Attachment theory and emotion processing. And I'm going to change this even further in just a minute. So what I noticed in the training of these programs is they teach amazing material. But what's emotion processing? Well, how many of you are, I'm sorry, say.
Doing.
It's doing. It's experiencing. Yes. I want you to help me teach this. Yes, that's key. Experiencing. How many of you are EFT trained? Okay, we got some good EFTers in here, and you know all about emotion processing. It's key. It's a key part of, and Kristen, Dr. Hansen, what do you call your training? It's EFT related.
People are calling it now EDT, which is experiential dynamic therapy. So
it's a sister.
Dad and Liz work. Yeah.
And it's the same principles. It's emotion processing. Okay. So this is what I noticed was missing. So there's another problem. They don't focus on attachment style. How many of you have had any education or understanding about attachment styles? Yeah. Does it affect relationships? Yes. But most of the programs don't really go in depth so that the couples can recognize how their own attachment style and their partner's attachment style might affect the bonding process. It gets in the way. It can. So what's missing? Bottom line. Information and understanding about the power of healthy adult bonding. Bonding, what is bonding? When you bond something, what happens? Yeah, there's no glue in between there, is there? What's cleaving? There's no glue in between, is there? There's no pin or a metal piece or Gorilla Glue. It's a bond, and and I like the word bond because it sounds so strong, right? That's what we're looking for. How to develop emotional safety. That's a term that I didn't see much in the programs, emotional safety, and how to cultivate a deeper connection. Those of you who see couples, what's the first thing they say? Why are you here? I want to connect. I want to connect deeper. And one or the other will say, I don't know what that means. Help me. So I can speak as an expert in this because I'm certified in couples communication 1 and 2. And I love this program because it is an experiential, somewhat experiential. There are mats and manuals that the couples are given. It's mostly behavioral. There's not really any premarital information in this program. It only briefly touches on that. But they teach attuning to partner, but if you look at the manual, it doesn't say, so this is what attuning is and this is how you get there. So attuning, we love that term, but I noticed when I was training in this, I was already trained in EFT, and I'm thinking, okay, I need to add emotion processing to this. I need to figure out how to do that. The reason I like this is because this is the speaking mat. How many of you are aware of this program? Okay, just a couple. Used to be widely, I think it's 40 years ago is when it was introduced, but this is the speaking mat, and it's more of a disclosure process. So one partner will stand on that and dissect the issue in terms of their thoughts, how they feel about it, what they want, and then there's a listening mat. So how many of us really get education in listening? Nobody. What's the hardest part of communication? Listening. So this is hard. And I love it because it teaches how to attend, to be accessible to the partner, to present oneself as I'm here, not looking at my phone, I'm listening to you. But the program really is more disclosing and not processing. So that's what I noticed. It's lacking in those areas. Now this one's amazing, PrEP. These 3 authors they created a best-selling book about fighting for your marriage, Markman, Stanley, and Bloomberg. And their program is about brief lectures. It's more of a lecture process, the speaker-listener technique. They focus on how to manage conflict, behavioral and cognitive communication skills, not much different about the content, okay? But what about, you see this pattern here. I'm still looking with a bias of the importance of attachment theory and emotion processing. Now this one, Prepare Enrich, is excellent because the couples go through an assessment at home on their computer before they go into the workshop. And it gives them a report that analyzes their couple type so they know their strengths and then they know what they need to work on. So that's wonderful. The couples are screened and then they go for more of a productive experience because they're now focusing in specifically on their customized report. It is founded on systems theory, which I love. That drew me in. Relational is important. It's considered preventative. They have 6 goals. They're all the same categories, all the same information that we've covered before. What about attachment and emotion processing? Now this one, I failed to mention that Dr. Rebecca Jorgensen was on my doctoral committee. And she was the one that had to stamp approval whether I graduated or not. And here I am presenting this program, and I knew that she was on the ground floor of the Hold Me Tight pilot. And she's an EFT trainer. She was my trainer. But the whole time, she was so supportive. And the day that I got news that I had graduated and my dissertation was accepted, she said, I want to partner with you. I want to bring this to the world. I knew that was that element that I had in my heart. And that's how we are across the world. She's so well connected. She's a worldwide trainer. But the reason we're looking at this program is because I also want to show you the differences between our program and the Hold Me Tight program. It's similar in that it's founded on attachment. Yay, finally we're there. It's founded on principles of attachment. It's targeted toward couples in distress, couples already committed. And it doesn't have premarital coupling information or how to develop healthy interactional patterns before they get deeply ingrained and take hold. So that's and then also it's a small targeted population because these are couples that can afford to go into therapy, that already are maybe seeing an EFT therapist, and they're looking at stopping and repairing from their negative interactional patterns. So there was still not a need that was being filled by this program. Okay, how about traditional couples therapy? We love it when those engaged couples come into us, right? Well, let's briefly compare the 2 types. Because I had to look at this too. What's effective? What works? What doesn't? Now, who do you think of when you think of behavioral-focused couples therapy?
Gottman.
There you go, Gottman. She's got all the right answers. Just come up here and she'll tell you. Gottman. Now, I can speak about this because I'm trained in Gottman couples therapy. It is behavioral. It's there tends to be a gender focus on men are dismissive and women are critical. He did some research that showed that when men accept influence from their wife, then the marriage is more stable. How's that feel to you guys? I've talked to John about this, so he knows how I feel about that. But now let's look at EFT as affect focus. That's a good example. So it focuses on negative interactional patterns. It's emotion focused. Emotion is key. It talks about attachment hurts and injuries. It focuses in on repair of those injuries. And couples research, it's founded on great empirical evidence that shows that it works over time. Couples remain stable. So I'm biased, but the research showed this to me. I'm thinking, okay, I need to found this on principles that are in EFT, the model. I didn't create a model, I created a program that's influenced by the works and vision of Dr. Susan Johnson. Here's a study that compared EFT and communication skills therapy. They took 42 couples, divided them in half, and half of them were given a treatment plan of 12 EFT sessions. Then the other half had 8 EFT sessions and 4 communication skills sessions. The result is interesting. EFT alone was effective over time. Short-term, immediate gains, those that did EFT and communication skills. That was James in 1991. Now, this was a meta-analytic review of couples therapy. They again compared behavioral with affect or insight-oriented, which EFT falls into that. And post-test, it yielded gains in all these areas: their behaviors, cognition, affect, and their overall assessment of their relationship. But here's what I thought was fascinating. Behavioral marital therapy was helpful for less distressed couples short-term, and emotionally focused therapy was more helpful for distressed couples over time. So there has to be something that's in that modality that offers couples the tools for long-term stability, okay? So I'm saying, okay, therefore what? My program has to involve attachment theory, and it has to involve experiential learning theory. I changed emotion processing. This is key, and I'm going to talk to you about it in a minute. I was so thrilled when in my doctoral program I went to my research professor, and she looked at my dissertation and she said, "Do you realize you have 2 theoretical frameworks in here, not just attachment?" She said, "You go study David Kolb's work." And I'll talk to you about that in a minute. She said, "You are already following his principles." So anyway, that's therefore what? But there's barriers to seeking couples therapy, and you could probably help me with those. What are some of them? The stigma. What were you going to say?
Blame.
Yeah. Shame, and even to admit, oh, we're engaged, but we're going to couples therapy. The stigma is one barrier. Most couples don't seek couples therapy. We're seeing the 0.001% of everybody in the world. Oh, maybe it's 0.0001%. So unfortunately, most people don't seek it. They don't look at it as an alternative to ending the marriage. Only a quarter seek counseling before they divorce. It's expensive. Insurance doesn't cover it. Can someone here do something about that? We're hoping that will change. But the saddest thing is most couples wait until 6 years down the road average when all the scars are so deep, and then there's real work that has to be done. So it's not a first thought, but here's what we found. Most premarital couples said that they would have taken advantage of the offer if it had been given to them. So obviously it's an acceptable thing, but they're not going to go find it. So therefore, application of findings. Here's the ACEs study. This was the influence for my relationship pyramid. The scientific gaps, there are scientific answers, and this is the structure of the program. And this is actually what we came up with. This is the brand, the look. And those 2 mats, these are mats, and I'm going to show them to you. I'm going to get you up on them in a minute. But the whole program involves, there's several components, and some of them are so important. I want you to know that there is a facilitator manual, and there's actually an intensive training. But there's also a participant manual, the 2 mats, the communicating for closeness mat, and the from conflict to connection mat, workshop slides that the facilitators get. And the reason I'm showing you all this is because there was concerns about how the information was conveyed. So even in preparing these slides that we created for the workshop, we had to take into consideration experiential learning theory. I'm going to take you through an exercise in a minute and demonstrate what I mean. We're gathering research. There are some doctoral students who are using our program in their dissertation. So we do assessments with the couples, gather that data, and submit it, and hopefully it will be out by next year. But then we also are interested in feedback from the participants, always revising, always listening, so that what isn't feeling right to them, what doesn't work, what did work, and what did you like. Okay, so the facilitator training. Because this is based on two very important theoretical frameworks, we want our facilitators to know through and through attachment theory and experiential learning theory and how to present the material. So they go through 2 full days of training so that the couples are ensured that they have a rich experience. Okay, so how do you teach it? What's the key? Well, we're going to go into that in just a minute. Attachment theory, I'm not going to bore you. How many of you understand through and through attachment theory? Okay, in a minute, all of you will raise your hand. So I'm going to help you learn the way we teach our couples. So John Bowlby, we love him. Since then, so many studies have been done on his theory. David Kolb is the one who founded experiential learning theory. And I want you to think in terms of gospel perspective. Okay, why are we here? To experience, to struggle, to go through challenges so that we can rise up and become like God, right? Well, this is what he said. Learning is the process whereby knowledge is created through the transformation of experience. We could have sat in Sunday school class in heaven, but we wouldn't have gotten it. We had to come here. We're going to talk a little more about that. This is his model. So think about it in terms of a couple program. Starts with an idea, abstract conceptualization. So you talk about the idea, and then you say, okay, let's experiment with that. Come on, couples, let's get up and experiment with it. They have a concrete experience. And then here's the piece that's usually missing in a learning environment. They reflect. They come back and talk about what happened. What was it like for you? What did you learn? What did you gain from that experience? That tamps it down. So that's why I was fascinated with his model. This is what Benjamin Franklin said. Tell me and I'll forget. Show me and I might remember. Involve me and I will understand. All in line with our Heavenly Father's plan, right? Yeah. So, this is the principles that drive this theory. And I want you to think in terms of a premarital education program. Think in terms of gospel perspective. Learning is best conceived as a process. Learning is grounded in experience. Learning requires a resolution of conflicts and adaptation to the new norm. Okay? So we have to struggle a little bit and figure out, oh wait, this is a better way. Okay, I will now adjust. Learning results from interactions between the person. Think about a bunch of couples learning together, interacting, reflecting, observing. And this is my favorite. Learning is a process of creating knowledge. Couples that go through this workshop actually create new knowledge. They learn about each other. They learn concepts that we're taught constantly. I love it. It's a rich experience. So I want you to tell me what you notice about this pyramid. It's not Maslow's. Tell me what you notice. Just observations.
It's positive.
It's positive? Did you say? Oh, I like that. I haven't. That's a new one.
It's all positive.
It's positive, yes.
It's relational.
It's relational. Okay, relational, positive. What else? Any geometry lovers here?
Which is interesting that physical is more at the top.
There you go. She pointed out that physical connection, we're talking about sex here, is at the top. Interesting. What's at the bottom? What's at the foundation of this pyramid? Attachment. What takes up the most space in that triangle? Attachment. So in other words, this is the foundation. If your relationship, your most significant relationship, is not built on attachment, it's built on sand. This is where the adult bonding happens, the friendship, the safety, the connection, the beginnings of the bonding. And then when you build on that, all these are more stable, right? And so this whole program, the relationship, the relational pyramid, is all influenced by attachment. And that's different, okay? So I'm just going to take you through section 1 and 2. There's 5. But that's because I want to get you out of your seats, and I'm going to introduce you to a wonderful system. I want you to experience it, right? I'm all about experiential learning. So now here's where I'm going to teach you about attachment. This is what we teach our couples in 2 hours. They get the whole, now we went through graduate school to learn about attachment theory, right? And still are trying to grasp the concept. But we have a way of teaching it that's powerful. So here's just the components of section 1. We talk about the relationship pyramid, just like we did now. The development of attachment, the theory. We talk about bonding in childhood and how important that is. We talk about attachment styles. We then talk about adult bonding and having a secure bond and how to find that and preserve it. Preservation is a big, important piece. Now this is the model that we use. We're going to walk through it. So what I want you to do right now is to think about a significant other in your life. Everyone has a significant other. We actually use these principles when we teach parents how to parent. So if you're thinking about one of your children, or if you're thinking about your sweetheart, I want you to ask yourself this question. Are you acceptable by that person? Do they accept you? You don't have to answer. Think about it in your mind. Do you have a sense of belonging with that person? What is belonging? What's the definition? Somebody help me. Somebody in the back so you don't go to sleep. What is belonging?
When you don't have to change yourself to essentially belong to a group, it's not fitting in. Belonging is you being your authentic self and you're accepted one way.
Just the way you are right now. You don't have to change yourself just by virtue of you being, you belong. That's beautiful. That's the best definition. But you're a professional, right? You get it? But that was perfect. It means right now, in all my imperfections and my flaws, I am acceptable. That gives us a sense of belonging. So are you acceptable? Do you have a sense of belonging? Now here it gets harder. Can you reach to that person to find comfort? And is it safe? Those are the ABCs of attachment. And we use an acronym because it's easier to remember. So as we go through this model, I want you to think in terms of what happens when you have one of those needs rise up. Okay? Ideally, you'll reach to your other person, that sweetheart. And ideally, they'll reach back and say, oh, I'm here for you. Let me wrap my arms around you. Hopefully most of the time, because we're not always accessible, but ideally the need would then be met. And because of connection with another person that matters to us, our self-worth goes up. Now think about that. This model actually explains much of self-worth issues. And so that's the perfect model, right? But the world is not perfect. So here's what happens when it doesn't go well. The need is maybe not met for whatever reason. So an alarm goes off that says, I need to get that need met. I need to feel acceptable. Think in your own relationships, or think of your children who have struggled maybe, or someone in your world that you know has had some pain and couldn't seem to find whatever it was. So here's what happens. That alarm goes off. The need isn't met. The need just grows stronger. So let's just say you have some discomfort in your relationship, or you have a negative view of yourself. You're not going to reach because you don't feel worthy of love. Or in your relationship, they send signals that you're not acceptable. So here's what happens. Instead of reaching, we react. Fight, flight, freeze, whatever we normally do in our attachment style. The problem is the need continues to not be met, and it becomes chronic anxiety, depression, and addictions. So we use this model to explain addictions as well, and any dysfunctional behavior. Okay? So do you have an understanding of attachment at this point? At least a foundational understanding. And when we have the couples think in terms of each other when they're walking through this model, they tell us that this is by far the most powerful model in section 1. It's just so helpful. Now we also have them doing an assessment. The reason we have them doing this, how many of you have heard of ARE? Yeah, Anybody want to share? What is it? Dr. Jorgensen.
Oh, gosh. Accessibility, responsiveness, and engagement.
Excellent. So it's another acronym, right? Because you can remember those so much easier. But the reason we have them do this, it's kind of a hidden agenda. We're gathering data. But Dr. Jonathan Sandberg gave me permission to use this in our published program. And what happens is they individually ask themselves the question, am I accessible to my partner? And when he or she accesses me, do I respond? How well am I doing there? And do I remain engaged? Then they switch gears and assess their partner on their own piece of paper, because this could go really bad if they show their score. We gather the assessment and then send it off to the people doing the study. So it's really by doing this assessment, they're learning about ARE, learning about the concept. Yes?
I use the ARE, the 15 questions, and give it to my couples and then send them home with a copy of it and say, learn to bring these to the far right.
Oh, can you hear him? Okay, maybe grab the microphone and say what he just said. Dean suggested that he uses this with his couples and sends them home with it.
There's 15 questions that Sue Johnson asked about ARE, 5 on A, 5 on R, 5 on E, and I have them put up in a Likert scale, and I give them to my clients, and after they answer it for their spouse, I make them copies, I explain it to them, and I send them home and say, I need you to work on these and get these all to the far end so that you're doing a perfect job.
Thank you. I'm really glad you shared that, Dean, because if you think about the ABCs of attachment, how do you fulfill those for your partner? By being ARE, accessible, responsiveness, and engaged in your relational interactions, okay? So that's important. Those combined, the ABCs of attachment and ARE are key, and we teach that in the very beginnings of this program. Now this one is also, it's so helpful to assess what are your strengths, what do you bring, what do you have now? So they go through this exercise and remember memories, things that impacted them as a couple. And so they can review that and they share it together. I'm not going to spend much time on that. I want to do this one. How many, I'm hoping if you're sitting next to someone that you are comfortable with, we always teach our couples this TTLL. It's an introduction to oxytocin and the power of touch. Okay, and they learn about the healing properties of oxytocin. Now, research has just revealed that people who have deeply spiritual experiences, oxytocin is coursing through their body. So it must be pretty important. I don't think it was a mistake or by just coincidence that it's a part of our body. I think our Heavenly Father really intended for that to be in there, but we're going to experiment with it. If you're sitting next to someone that is a dear friend or feels safe to you, I want you to reach over and touch their arm. Louise, will you come up and do it with me? I need my dose of oxytocin. Thank you. I love you. So I'm going to ask her to stay here because oxytocin is only released if it's a lingering touch. Now, I recently did this. This happens every time. I lose everybody. Okay, I need your attention. I did this recently when I did a presentation in Sacrament Meeting about technology and how it disconnects us. The whole congregation was abuzz when I asked them to touch because it just opens up. I'm seeing smiles. Thank you. Thank you. Now we're looking in each other's eyes. Oxytocin is released, particularly because I love you. And she knows that. But when you look into someone's eyes, that is a form of touch.
It is.
It's powerful, isn't it?
It is.
Are you feeling it?
I am.
Oh, I'm so happy. Thank you. Thank you. So touch is the first one. Tone is the second one. We teach the couples while you're holding each other's hand or while you're touching each other, I want you to talk with a reading voice. This is a way to connect safely. If you want to instantly connect with your partner, that's the way to do it. A reading voice. Think you're reading to your grandchild, you're reading to your son or daughter. anybody, that tone of voice will encourage the release of oxytocin. And then looking at each other, when I looked in Louise's eyes, I was filled with a feeling. Did you feel it? Did you do it? Yes. And then listening. It's not just listening. It's what I heard you say, Louise, was that it was powerful. Did you say that? What did you say? Remind me when we were looking in each other's eyes. You don't remember?
You said, can you feel it? And I said,
Yes. And the way you said it, I knew. So you said, yes, this is reflective listening. We do it as therapists. That's what we do. So anyway, this is a powerful experience because in this workshop, they now have a tool. Put it in your tool bag, take it home, and stay connected. Anytime you're at odds with each other, do that, you'll be out of odds with each other. You have this in your hand, okay? So we're going to do another exercise. Here's another way to process and understand where we get off track in our relationships. How are we doing on time? How much more time do we have?
We have 40 minutes.
Awesome. Perfect. Okay. So I want you to take a look at this chart. This is the one that you have. And I want you to look at the base of that chart. Think in terms of your significant other. Okay? And I want you to ask yourself, when we're disconnected, I most long for what? Find that in that list. Take a look at it. And if anybody wants to share, I'm just interested of what stands out for you. These cover most of the categories of our attachment needs. Anybody want to share what you identified when you're disconnected from your sweetheart? Linda, what do you feel, Dean? See me as capable, which makes you feel acceptable, right? Yeah, so you long for that. Anybody else want to share? Yes.
Well, acceptance. Accept me the way I am. I'm imperfect so many ways, and I'm changing, and so are you, but you still accept me.
Please accept me. So when you're feeling disconnected from your sweetheart, that rises up like, I want you to accept me. I'm still trying.
Even in my dull moments.
Oh, you have those too?
Oh, yeah.
Louise, you raised your hand.
I must have mixed attachment because I keep thinking the shoulder I want to cry on is holding up the neck I want to wring.
See how fast she went up here? Thank you, Louise. Okay.
What you said.
So
The shoulder I want to cry on.
say it again. The shoulder I want.
The shoulder I want to cry on is
Is-
holding up the neck I want to wring.
So obviously, when Louise is feeling that, something happened down here that maybe was hidden, that maybe wasn't talked about, maybe. And I would love to use you as an example. Are you willing to do that? Basically, when you feel disconnected from your partner, and brother, tell me your last name. I'm blind from this far away. What's your name?
Brother Jacobson.
Jacobson. Brother Jacobson suggested, I just want to know that I'm acceptable. Now, when you're not feeling acceptable, what feelings are familiar? Move to the next level. When that's not happening for you, what's familiar? Are you sad? Do you feel lonely? Maybe rejected, abandoned? Maybe it's not that dramatic, inadequate. Unappreciated, and Brother Jacobson maybe feels inadequate, maybe, or whatever that feeling is for you when you're not feeling acceptable. So if you can share here, most of us shoot so fast, we go up into here and we want to punch the head that's on the neck of the person. But if we can share at this level and say, I'm so sad. Right now I'm really struggling. I want to feel accepted by you. It's not in danger of passing this threshold. But if we don't share it, we put it on a shelf. We stuff it. It stays with us. But then we go up into here Maybe we feel angry and rage comes up, or blame and we criticize. Our view of our other and ourself becomes negative, and our behavior becomes negative. Do you see how helpful this chart is? So they take it home and they post it on their refrigerator, and it turns yellow through the years. I've been using this for years and years. So the second section, this is now where I'm going to get you out of your seats, and I need your help to move the chairs, not yet. Because this is where we introduce the couples to our experiential mats. Now, we're going to talk about communication, but we're going to talk about communication in a different way. We're not just teaching, you say this, you say that, go home, practice, and you'll be okay. We're learning how to communicate and dig and mine for more meaningful connection. Maya Angelou said, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And that happens at church every Sunday, right? I don't remember what was talked about 2 weeks ago, but boy, do I remember it was a fabulous meeting. General conference 6 months ago, it was amazing. I don't remember what they said. I have to go read it. But that's the same concept. In this section, we're having them experience things that they will remember and go home and want to replicate, okay? So here's the things that we cover. We have communication icebreakers. Can you imagine turning to the person next to you and communicating I love you without saying anything? Body language? I'm watching. Go ahead. There you go. Oh, yeah. Did you feel it? That's easy. Now I want you to turn and communicate to each other that you have a need. You're good. It was something in your face. It was a physical expression that instantly communicated, I need something. Okay, so body language, we communicate 70% of the time without words. But couples don't know how to do that yet. So they have to realize we actually learn about what contempt looks like. If we roll our eyes, if I look at you, Kristen, and just go, what did you feel just now?
Disconnection, sad.
Sad, but I was trying to tell you you're stupid. Right? Right. Oh, isn't that painful? And when we point it out to the couples and they go, oh, when I roll my eyes, I'm telling you you're stupid. Yes, contempt. Be careful. Be very sensitive, because it's like a spark in a tinder forest, can burn the whole relationship, okay? So we teach them about body language. We teach them about connecting talk. What's that? Well, you'll learn in a minute. We introduce them to the Communicating for Connection mat. There's a demonstration, and then they get up and they use it. So, first, before we get them up, yes, Brother Jacobson.
Don't forget listening in all of this.
You're going to get that experience in just a minute. Thank you.
I was going to say, because the good Lord's way ahead of us. He created us with 2 ears and 1 mouth. Isn't that an interesting correlation?
There you go. And he keeps saying, please come to me, talk to me. I'm listening, right? He listens more than he talks. Yeah? Thank you. Because that's going to be a very powerful and difficult part of this section. So we're going to maybe have you demonstrate listening. This exercise is a cheat sheet for when they get up on the mat. You don't get to do that today. You're just going to role play. I hope you're willing, because this is a really rich and fun experience. But once they go through that, this is the mat. Dean, could you help me hold up one of these? I really want to show them the real thing. And I brought a lot of them, but I also gave you a printout if you don't want to get out of your seats. Now they're two-sided. This is the side one. Okay. So the third module, and we're not going to have time to go over that one, is more processing attachment injuries. Same view of the mat looks the same, but the prompts are different. It's 8 feet by 4 feet. And so thank you, Dean. I'm going to just talk about it up here. The easiest way to orient you to this mat is to divide it into sections. So I want you to look at just the circles. This is where the speaker stands. They identify an issue that keeps them stuck in their relationship, just something in this section non-threatening, like I'm worried you spend too much time at work, whatever. this section is where the listener is, Brother Jacobson, right here, okay? And A, I'm here for you, I'm accessible. R, responsive, I want to know more. E, I'm so glad you're sharing, I'm engaged. So how often do we really know what to do in the listening position? This teaches. The prompts are there. So on that side, the speaker, this is the listener, but this is where they start. So one will stand here facing the partner on slow. The partner's up here on slow. They're looking at each other. This is the beginning. We call this the pause place, the safe zone. And so they start on slow. It's a reminder. We're going to take this really slow. We're going to talk about something very difficult. Then they move into breathe, moving closer to each other. And it's a reminder, not only are we going to keep this slow, because when couples spin out of control, it's so fast and away they go. We're going to breathe. Now we have the opportunity to touch. And often, what's so interesting to me is we'll get a couple, maybe with one or the other has been through some sort of trauma or abuse, and they're not ready to touch. So could you come up and demonstrate what we do with them? So what we do is when we're standing on, okay, we're going to slow down, breathe, and now we're going to touch. And just that power. Do you feel it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, isn't it great? So couples that are not safe in touch yet can do this, and it's a connecting experience. And we're looking at each other. Even sometimes they can't look at each other, yeah, because it's a little threatening. So that's what we start with. So briefly, I'm going to take you through every element of the bubbles, and then I want to get you up on them. Oh, 30 minutes. Okay, I have to hurry. We'll have maybe 15 minutes on the mats. So Dr. Susan Johnson was introduced to this a few weeks ago. For me, this was probably the greatest blessing of all. Just the validation. When she saw it, she was full of joy. She said, "This is the most interesting innovation I've seen in a long time. I like it." And gave us permission to put her name on the front of our manuals in our book, to say that it's inspired by the work and vision of Dr. Susan Johnson. She's been talking about it since. We're so excited. That's such a validating experience. In other words, she sees the power of it. She understands that this really is an effective process. So the pause place, I talked about it in terms of this is where we begin. Remember, it's here. But it also, if the couple kind of spins out of control, they're starting to feel flooded, one's agitated, the listener will get there. It's so hard to just listen, and we're talking about a hard thing. At any moment, they can move over to this pause place, get regrounded, stay out of flooded zone, and then get back in place. So the pause place is really just a nice, safe zone to take a breather. So when they get on the issue, it might be something like, I feel you'd rather be at work than at home. They'll state it pure, and the partner will repeat it. Then they move, the arrows show them where to go. How often when we're talking about an issue, do we actually say, well, this is what I do when it gets really hard. I get the keys to my car, I get in my car, and I go away, and I stay away. To hear that from your partner, for your partner to know that you actually see what you do. That's what I do when it gets so hard. That's what my body tells me to do, and that's the only safe way I can deal with this. That's powerful to just talk about that. Now the thoughts. This is what I tell myself when this issue comes up. I tell myself, you'll be angry if I talk about this. Again, something that couples wouldn't necessarily think of to talk about. Well, the issue is you just stay at work too much, so stop it. But my partner has no idea that I tell myself I must not matter. I'm not worthy of your love. You really would rather be at work than with me. So that becomes powerful. Feelings. So often couples think that talking about feelings is, I feel like you don't love me. No, I feel sad. I feel alone. But typically it starts with more visible emotions. I get angry. I just numb out. I'm frustrated. But just to identify that is so revealing for the partners. Here's where we get tears. How often when you're talking about an issue do you actually say, what I'm so afraid of? My catastrophic fear is that we'll fall out of love. But that's a pretty important thing to talk about, right? And then what I need. How often, when we're talking about an issue, do we say, this is what I really need and long for? But here's where it gets really powerful. We encourage the couple to start with, this is what I hope for you. If you could come home and be with me more, if you could come home sooner, if I could know when you're going to come home from work. I want you to feel fulfilled. This is what I want for me, and this is what I want for us, our kids, everybody. So that's a really powerful way to scour this out. But the whole time, the listener is prompting, I'm here for you. I'd like to know more. I'm so glad you're telling me. So that is the listening bubbles, and they're pretty self-explanatory. I want to get you up. How many want to do this? You don't have a choice. So let's move the chairs. If you want to just stay in your chairs, that's okay. But I have plenty of mats, and I would love to get you up. There you go. And it's going to be, there's a specific side. This one. Yep, here we go. Who wants to do this? We need 2 couples on each mat. Wherever you want to put it. And any takers? Anybody else want to do it? Come on, I've got plenty. Kristen, how about you and your team? Here you go. There you go. Take them in the back, maybe. How about somebody back here? Would you like to demonstrate listening? Sure. Can 2 girls do it? Can 2 girls do it? Yeah, you can do. Oh, anybody. This is a relational experience. It doesn't matter. I'll get them all out if you're interested. Here you go. Yep. The other way, you can get more. Yeah. Yes, you bet. Now, those of you who have it in your lap, we call those touch mats, and you can do the same thing. You can just put your finger on the circle where you are. And would you like it demonstrated? Yes. Okay, let's do this. So actually, to demonstrate it, Louise, I'm going to pick on you. You come on up and we'll demo it, okay? So we're going to put it this way so that Louise can come up here and we can show you, and then you can get up and just try it. Do you have any questions before we start? Just want to see it in action? Okay.
My first concern is those heels are going to put a hole in them.
Well, that's true. Well, no, they're really durable, but I'm not, actually, I'd be thrilled to take my shoes off. So, Louise, let's start with the pause place. Okay. So we're going to start. Can you see us well enough?
I think it needs to be
the other way? Yeah. Okay. Let's move this mat. Thank you, Dean. Okay. Now remember, this experiential learning, it tamps it down into their memory and their heart and in their soul. So you're going to tell me when we have 10 minutes left? I am. Okay. So we're going to start on the pause place. And what's this like just to stand near me?
It feels great. I'm so excited for you. That's what I keep feeling.
Thank you.
So I'm going to try to slow down and focus. Okay.
Okay. How about if we breathe? We're going to move in and just, we're going to talk about something really hard and you have no idea what it is, do you?
No.
Oh, there you go. Now you have a mic.
Awesome.
So do you want to choose an issue or do you want me to choose the issue?
And it's going to be hard?
Yeah, you can. I'm happy to listen.
Oh, I'm going to be doing the talking?
Do you want to? Is that okay? She doesn't have a choice. Should we touch?
Sure.
Okay. That's a grounding experience. Now, I'm going to stand over here. I have a mic, so you go ahead and use yours. And I'm going to stand on accessible. She's going to stand on issue. So, Louise, you would like to talk to me about something hard. I'm here for you. Can you tell me what the issue is? Make it hard.
Okay. I'm trying to decide if I should make something up or if I should be real.
Oh, I'm fine with that. I didn't know she had a beef with me.
No. Oh, so this is a thing between the two of us.
This is our relationship. Yeah,
Okay.
let's make something up. Like we really had a
Oh,
bad falling out. I don't know.
well,
Maybe you're mad at me because I never call you to go to lunch.
no, I'm
Darn.
I'm not. But that sounds like a projection.
So what I heard you say is, oh, that was good. Do you want to use that one? You choose.
Oh, and
What's
then
the issue? What's the issue?
okay, I'm making something up. Okay, sure. You haven't called me for so long.
Okay. So, Louise, what I heard you say is that I haven't called you for so long, and I sense that you're upset about it. It's been hard for you. Did I get that right?
Yes, it's been very hard. I've wondered why you haven't called me for so long.
Okay, so you're even curious about why you don't understand. Okay, so when it gets hard, I'm the therapist standing off to the side and I'm saying, so Louise, could you talk about what you do when it gets hard? When you think about the fact that I don't call you, could you move to the arrow tells you where to go?
Okay, I mentally rehearse in my mind what I'm going to say to you when you call me.
So you actually think about your comeback. If I do call you, you're wanting to yell at me, or could you give me more information? I'm not really sure.
No, I don't want to yell. I want to be sarcastic.
Okay. Okay. I've seen you do that. That's a lie. You guys know this is role play, right?
Okay, I just keep thinking about Shakespeare, and in Merry Wives of Windsor, one of the characters says, "What thou sayest in jest is meant in the heart."
Wait, you're supposed to be telling me that. Okay, so now you can move to the next circle, which would be what you think. Or are you not done yet? Do you do more than
No,
just you?
no,
Okay, so
no.
now move back to the next step is what do you think? What do you tell yourself when I don't call you?
Tell myself about me or tell myself about you?
Yes. What's the
Oh.
thoughts when I don't call you?
Well, it's kind of a combination. I tell myself she must be busy. Either that, or when she tells me that she really does want to call me, she's not sincere. And so then I think, oh, just typical.
Do you know, Louise, I'm really glad you're telling me this. I'm really glad you're sharing because I had no idea. I'm engaged. I'm saying, I'm glad you're sharing and I'm trying to make it safe for you to continue, even though it's really hard for me. This is hard for me, but I'm glad you're telling me. Okay, so could you talk to me about your feelings? I'm here, I'm interested.
My feelings right now or my feelings when you don't call me?
When the issue comes up.
Bugged. I think the best word I can say is bugged. And conflicted. And so bugged, conflicted, and also sort of a feeling of whatever.
Okay, so you kind of go to ambivalence. You just say whatever.
Yes.
You're bugged, and then you say, I don't want
Yes.
to care about it.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm really glad you told me that. I had no idea. So what I want to know is, what are those fears that are underneath all this? What's your catastrophe that you're worried about?
You know, I am about to step on that circle and I can already feel tears coming.
Oh.
That is amazing. And this is, we're role playing.
Yeah.
But okay.
And you know, when you just told me that, I feel it too.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, what's your fear?
I think that my core fear that's at the very center is I'm afraid to be alone.
So when I don't call you and you think I don't care, say that again. Could you tell me that
Well,
again?
I think that a higher fear would be higher up on the not so deep, is that I feel like I fear that I'm not that great.
That you're not that great.
Yes, that
So-
I'm not that great.
Wow, I'm so glad you told me this. You said you would be alone because of my neglect of not calling you.
I think that's the core fear that's being triggered.
Wow, I'm so glad you told me. What do you need and what do you long for? Could you move to that circle? I want to know more.
Well, I just need you to flip and call me.
I think we need the pause place. And that's what you would do if it kind of gets out of control. But I do want to know what you need. Do you know what you need? Because often what they'll say is, I don't know.
I can hear couples saying that, though, saying,
You need me to call you.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You get to ask for that, you know.
So what do I need? I would really be grateful if, what do I need? I don't know. I am not sure.
Okay. And that's, at this point, we park it and we say, let's go back to that. Can we go back there? But first, could you tell me what you hope for me, for you, and for us?
Oh, absolutely. I hope you're happy. I can see that you're doing great. And what I hope for me is that I'm going to be able to go home tonight and have a really good night's sleep. But
I'm so glad you told me.
I hope for me that I can feel okay. That's what I want, is to feel okay. And what I hope for us is an authentic relationship.
And one thing I heard you say in the what you need me to call you.
That'd be great.
Okay, I'm so glad you told me that. And I'm so glad you talked about what you hope for. And you know what's really interesting about this process? We're now going to fall out of role, and I just adore you. Thank you. I think that part of that was personal. Because I don't ever call her. But she doesn't ever call me. So here's what's really amazing about this MAT system is that if you start on the issue, you most likely don't know everything about how you feel about it, how you think about it, what you hope for, what you need. But by the time you're done, and by the time you've wept on the fear circle, you have a pretty good grasp of the issue, and your partner does as well. And they switch roles. We encourage the couples to choose the same issue, because usually if it's issue for one, it's an issue for both. So, how much time do we have? 12 minutes. Any questions before we move forward? Because we're just about done. Yes?
So would you ever say, I will call you? Do you ever commit then to what?
You know, couples, when we're doing therapy, we want them to share about how they feel and process and just feel heard. But when we've got couples in this workshop, we can't say, well, you just need to feel heard. No, they need to come to a collaborative decision. So the next actually good question leads to our next step. Do you remember in the experiential learning theory? What was the last part? We're going to reflect. So Louise, now, did you feel more connected when we were processing on the mat?
Oh, of course. Even though it wasn't the real deal, I did, of course.
You felt more connected.
Even just the practice is so, it just gets that stuff, all of those chemicals going.
The great oxytocin, when you looked at me, I felt that happen. So now that you feel more connected, now that you both, as a couple, have an understanding of each other's needs, goals, wants, dreams, now that you understand more about the hidden feelings and desires, let's find a collaborative end. I heard you say you want me to call you. Shame on me for not calling you, and I really want to. You know why? Because you told me about your fear. I had no idea that you felt like you would be alone. Do you see how the impact of when you hear about that fear, you're saying, I want to fill that need, okay? So to answer your question, yes, we hope that by the time they get to the end of this process, they will have been able to sit down and reflect and collaborate, okay? So 10 minutes, okay. And I actually am not going to be able to go through all the 5 modules. I just wanted to review. We then go to talking about conflict. The opposite side of the mat has prompts for how to walk through even traumas such as betrayal and infidelity, pornography, when it's been revealed that that's a part of their relationship. So it's not necessarily about finding the fix. It's about feeling heard and guiding that partner, the offending partner, to be able to process and help their partner heal, because they don't know how to do it either. But the other side of the mat teaches them how to do that. Then we talk about sex. We talk about connected sex. We talk about sex in a deep sense. Sex with an attachment lens, and it's pretty powerful. And our couples tell us that they have a view and an understanding of each other after that module that they couldn't get in the books. So, and it's very appropriate. And then traditions. It's based on Dr. Lloyd Newell's doctoral work about traditions and rituals and how they're the glue that keeps the family together. None of the programs talked about that I looked into. So we're all about that, aren't we, and with the Heavenly Father's plan? So I want to talk to you, this is what I really want you to know. As this document, when that had such impact on me so long ago, I focused on the second paragraph. And you know, the whole theme of this conference is creating connection, getting connected. So let's go way, way, way back. That time in heaven when it was your turn to come here. Now, if you look at that paragraph, it talks about all of us, male and female, are created in the image of God. And we know that God is a plural. We have a Heavenly Mother and a Heavenly Father. And President Harold B. Lee talked about that moment. I actually have a quote, but I'll just share it's not verbatim, but it's so beautiful. He said, I want you to imagine that day. It must have been very hard when we sat with our Heavenly Mother and our Heavenly Father in the family setting, and we were so acceptable. We were loved. We were connected. Our spirits, we have a divine nature, divine of God, belonging to God, godlike. Everything about this place here is formatted to the pattern that we had there. We were connected. So that day, President Harold B. Lee said, it must have been sad when we had to say goodbye, because it was as if we walked through a door and the door was closed behind us. And we left our heavenly parents. But our divine nature is here with us. We have to connect. And I fully believe, even though my couples that are not of our faith and don't want spirituality involved in the session, I know their spirits are in distress. Because if our body and our spirit is our soul, and you remember the ACEs study, it affects us physically, mentally, spiritually. We must connect. And that's why this program, I feel, is so important to teach these couples how to do that and how to preserve the connection. And I bear witness of the truthfulness to you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.